Thank you very much. Today talking about Geopacific's Woodlark project on the Woodlark Island, 300 k's off the coast of PNG. We finished the PFS on this project earlier this year, and we rolled immediately into a definitive feasibility study which we're currently in. That will be finished by the end of the year. So today mainly talking about the PFS results and highlighting where we're going on the DFS. We're looking at a 2.4 million tonne per annum standard CIP circuit, CIL circuit, 100,000 ounces per annum production out of that. Very good head grade for the first few years in particular. The absolute standout for this project that separates it from most others you come across is that very low strip ratio. You can harp on about that, not too much really, because the difference there to your average West Australian deposit of a strip ratio of 7 to 5, that extra 5 at $3 a tonne basically is our processing cost. So this feeds into very low costs for the project, and with free milling ore and good recoveries, it gives us very good all-in sustaining costs of below 800 for the first few years, and that feeds into a very good project payback of 2 and a bit years. Most importantly for this project, all permits are in place, so as soon as we finish our DFS and financing, we go straight into a build. That's quite unique in this part of the world. It nearly takes 2 years, but that was done by the previous operators, so that's saving us a huge amount. We also go into this with about $140 million worth of tax shield. That's at project level, so we realise all of that, and that adds a lot to the project as well. Our post-tax IRR is 33%, which is very good. We've got a team that's done all this before between us. We've built 10 mines in 7 countries in 3 different commodities. So we like to think that we know how to do this sort of thing, and it really does help when you're working in particularly third world jurisdictions. And the very large resource up base for this project is really quite evident, and we'll have a look at that as we go through with a bit of luck. Corporate snapshot, you can see the figures there. Our significant shareholders really are world-class. Tembo, RCF, Franklin Templeton, Washington Soul Patts, very good shareholders, very glad to have them there, and they've been great supporters in what has been a pretty tough market. Where are we? Pre-26, project owned by Cooler Gold. They'd spent $150 million on this project. They'd done 300,000 metres of drilling. They'd completed a DFS in 2012 numbers. They most importantly permitted the project, and that's been one of the greatest things that's happened for us. And there was quite a bit of historic mining that had gone on back to the 1880s, and the Woodlark Goldfield was actually the first registered goldfield in PNG. We got on the ground in December 2016, so we've only had this project now for 22 months. In that time, we've drilled 30,000 metres of extra drilling to infill and tidy up holes in what we considered were areas that the project need to be tightened up. Because of the work that had been done previously out of that $150 million, we were able to move quite quickly into looking at where we could optimise CapEx and OpEx, and we've really changed the project around quite a lot from where it was. And we started our pre-feasibility study in 2017, which finished early this year. We then rolled straight into the DFS. That tied in with updating the resources and reserves. We've got a 1 million ounce reserve on the project now, and rolled straight into the DFS, and the numbers that we're seeing through the DFS are really considerably better than what we saw in the PFS. A little bit unusual, but because we build a lot of mines, we tend to be a little bit conservative in our PFSs. We build these things, we're not trying to do a pump and dump here. So it's very important to us to come up with something that we can mine without it going pear-shaped. But what we're seeing in the DFS is considerably better numbers than what we have seen in the PFS. Where are we? We're 300 k's off the coast of PNG, totally surrounded by world-class mines. Now, if you were going to go somewhere in the world and look for gold, this has got to be one of the world's great areas. A 10 million ounce project here is actually a baby. And we're totally surrounded by them, and they'd be a lot closer, but it'd be wet. An island is great in PNG. You don't have some of the social issues that we do hear about. We've got what are known as the friendliest people in the place, and most importantly, our island is flat, very easy to get to. The island itself about 70 k's long. It's got everything we need. We've got 600 square kilometres of exploration licence there. We're the only people on the island. 60 square k's of fully permitted mining licence. We've got a beautiful airstrip built during the war by the Americans for us, and it still comes complete with a B-24, which is pretty handy. A good camp. Very good local workforce. Everybody speaks English. Very, very friendly place. You'd happily let your kids run around here. No security issues at all. A bit more on the financials. Revenue life of mine, 1.6 billion. Free cash flow, 388. Very good costs over the life of mine. Good MPVs. Most importantly, have a look at that processing cost there. 1836. We always thought that was a little bit over the top, and it's turned out to be considerably over the top, and because that number is somewhat higher, and I can't really tell you what it is because it hasn't been released, but somewhat higher than what we're seeing now. We're actually rethinking a little bit of the project on how we move forward, and we think that the economics coming out will be much, much better than what have been in the PFS. Currently on the PFS numbers, good payback year 2, which is very good. That's standing on top of the Busai deposit. One of the main cost drivers for why this project works so well is that it's flat. So you can see there, topography is not one of our issues. We're about 4 k's from the coast. We've got a very deep, safe port, so it's very easy to bring in bulk commodities. We've got a very, very simple plant design. Good recoveries and low strip ratio, and all of these are driving those low costs. Mining and production, you see there again strip ratio reaches a maximum at year 6. It's still very low at that point, the envy of a lot, and that's basically saying what happens if we don't discover another thing on this project, and that I can assure is highly, highly unlikely. So really anything after year 3 is going to look totally different to that. And the first 3 years are absolute crackers. Very steady production flow there, about 100,000 ounces a year. I think what you'll see in the DFS when it comes out shortly, considerably better numbers than that, particularly up front. A graph I really like here because this highlights that strip ratio. Again, how much dirt do you have to move to get X amount of gold? And when you put that up and you compare us to our peers, the Dacians, the Echoes and whatnot, you'll see that although they have a higher grade than what we do, we don't have to move anywhere near as much as the planet as they do. So our economics are as good, if not better, and also considerably de-risked because the strip ratio being so low just makes bulk mining so much easier. A bit more on the island itself. We don't have music or anything to sing and dance with this, but woodlark there, totally surrounded by world-class operations. Very easy place to get to, just north of the Missima operation, which ran very successfully for years. You can see the 2 main deposits there, Coolamadaw and Busai. The resources are spread pretty equally between those. They're about 4 k apart, so the plant sits in the middle, very easy. Again, the place is very flat. Coolamadaw, heavily drilled by numerous companies over the years, and as I say, 150 million spent on this, so you can see no shortage of drilling. We have some very good understanding of the geology here. This pit only gets down to 120 metres at its maximum. Most of it's less than 100. There's a huge amount of work to do to push this pit deeper and along strike. You'll see the mining schedule there. There's not much doubt that with more exploration, all of that will become one very large pit and push out to the north quite considerably. Busai also, flat topography again. A lot of drilling in this area by ourselves and others. As you can see, there's not going to be too much doubt about what the ore grade's going to be there. A lot of inferred still hanging out the bottom of the pit, and we need to do a bit more drilling there to push this pit down. Most of this pit is only 90 metres deep, so huge potential to push it further down and along strike. And the mining of that, again, very simple, straightforward stuff. Only 2 k's from the plant makes life very, very easy. Most of our workforce, 95% of the workforce, will be local, so they're walking in and walking out. Flying over the top of the Busai deposit at the moment, you can see the coast just nearby, and looking across the Coolamadaw plant sits in the middle. As you can see, again, topography is not one of our challenges. Coolamadaw Visage, keep an eye on that open area there. That's the soccer pitch at the front of the local school. We do have to move this village, and the 400 people there are very happy to do so because we're building them something considerably better than what they've got now. So looking across to Busai and around over the Coolamadaw deposit, our current camp sleeps 120 easily now. It can be expanded up to 300, so we don't have to do much for a build camp. A small wharf facility. We're actually putting another one in on the other side of the bay, but as you can see, very easy place to operate, very easy place to get around. The island was extensively logged in the 80s, so pretty well everything you see is actually regrowth. There's that schoolyard again with the local kids on it. Everybody speaks English, as I say. It's a very easy place to work and to get around, and everybody's very, very friendly, which is always pleasant. Quick cross-section, or long section I should say, of the ore body. Some of the intersections there are as good as you'll see anywhere in the world, and certainly as good as some of the intersections that have been around over the last couple of days. Typical epithermal type ore body, high grades, within a run of mine of lower grade material. We see this as more of a bulk mining operation than a high grading episode. We really want to get the lower cuts down so we can maximise the ore body. The pit itself, you can see there with the ore blocks in it why the pit ratio is quite low, I should say. 50 million tonnes at 1 in the reserve, and in the resource, 35 million tonnes at 1 gram in the reserve, and a very high conversion of that. Additional upside, immediate upside, is in that area of yellow there. That's actually where the village sits, and that dot in the middle that shows you where mineralisation is in pink with the question marks around it, that's the schoolyard. Last year they gave us permission to actually drill on the schoolyard, which shows you how good the people are, and we had a pretty spectacular hit off that. We've got no drilling around it because the village is there, so as soon as the village gets moved before we get into mining, we will probably add 100 to 150,000 ounces in that area, which is currently in the pit as waste. So that'll make an amazing difference once we can do that. Can't drill there at the moment because of the village. The bigger picture, easily a 5 million ounce field here. We're coming up to 2 million ounces in resource now. A lot of the island is covered in a very thin veneer of coral limestone, which is that white area. So that's the equivalent of your West Australian transported soils over the top. Very difficult to see through it. There's been zero exploration done in those areas. You can see the blue dots there, that's where we have drilled. You can see the repetition in the zones between that, and there's very little doubt that there's at least 1 or 2 deposits sitting between Busai and Coolamadaw that are under that cover, and that cover's only 3 to 4 metres thick. And Woodlark King is an entire trend to the south, and basically all our mineralisation is found where northeast and northwest structures intersect, and they open up and you get these nice north-south zones that we've got now. So where are we? The investment case, really, we're an emerging producer. We've nearly finished our DFS. We're ready to go with permitting. We've appointed our debt advisors. They're already working with the banks on our behalf. We're in one of the world's best jurisdictions to go mining with world-class ore bodies. PNG is an incredibly stable place mining wise and politically. Believe it or not, they don't change their Prime Minister twice every term. Mining law hasn't changed for years. It's a great place to do business. We're seeing some great IRRs and NPVs on the project with really a massive upside with 2 million ounces at the moment. That's very, very, very small for that part of the world, and most of our stuff is only down 100 to 120 metres. So a long way to go. We've got a team that's got the points on the board doing all this sort of stuff before, so we think we can bring this on as fast as you can and at the right price and have a good team in place to make it all work. Thank you very much.